unless I'm in a better place mentally and physically, I will not go back to dancing. And I threw out all my point shoes, all my leotards.
Hello, my name is Erika Lemay. I'm the founder of Lemay Lab, and today you're going to experience, I say experience because I think she has a very unique knowledge, an interview I made with Ayça Anil. She is a professional ballerina, but also the visionary behind the training method and community called Bodhi Core. She has a very smart way of seeing movement and helping movement longevity, which is all about Lemay Lab. So that was a very fascinating conversation for me. And she's also very open to discuss the most difficult points of being a professional ballerina and what could potentially change in the future. So let's welcome her. Ayça Anil, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today so the Flexi community can really benefit from your knowledge.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
What's the hardest thing about being a ballerina?
I think the identity issues, to be honest, and trying to fit into the ballet aesthetic physically, but also mentally. I think dancers are required to stay in peak form, stay injury free, recover really quickly, but there aren't really enough education or awareness as to what dancers actually need and how they can stay in peak form without getting injured. So I think the lack of awareness in the dance community and also the lack of resources provided creates the biggest challenge. But also, as I said at the beginning, dancers tie their self-worth to their performance or how they look, and that kind of ties their self-worth into the applause they get. So I think, yeah, finding self-worth and the physical demands of the art form.
Yeah, which makes physical injuries very difficult to deal with when you're self-defining like that. Let's go back to your background. You're obviously a professional ballerina, but much more than that, you're an educator. You're really, for me, you're also a positive advocate for dancers and conditions, so which is fantastic. And I say positive because there's a lot of people talking about what they don't like, but in a negative, such a negative way. So we'll never hear. You do it in a very smart way, which I have to applaud you for.
Thank you.
What's your background, your formation, ballet education, and so on?
I started dancing when I was about 5 years old. We had compulsory ballet lessons at the kindergarten,
How
and then
fantastic! Huh. Okay.
very unusual. And then because I was naturally very hypermobile, I stood out and I started to like dancing. And then I asked my mom to take me to ballet lessons, and that's how it basically started. And then I started going to the ballet conservatory in Istanbul. And when I was about 12 and a half, I was accepted to John Cranka Ballet School, and I moved abroad by myself. And I studied there for about 6 years. And it's actually very interesting because I got into the academy, which is the highest education. It equals to going to a university, I guess. And because I was short, they said I wouldn't get a job in Germany. And the director advised me to go to the UK because they accepted dancers. There were more dancers that had my body type. So they helped me transfer to London, to a school in London. And then funnily enough, I got offered a job before any of my classmates. I think it was luck that I actually ended up in the UK.
How old were
And
you at that point?
I was 17 and a half. I was about 18. I was still studying, and so I actually never auditioned because they were just the director came in one day watching class and decided to offer me a contract. So I was very lucky with that. But then after touring with that company, it was a touring company, I burned out very quickly. Also because I mean, I was living in a boarding school in a ballet school that had very interesting rules and not a very positive environment. I quit dancing when I was 21, when I was just about to dance, when I was just casted for the lead roles. And I said, unless I'm in a better place mentally and physically, I will not go back to dancing. And I threw out all my point shoes, all my leotards. I, um, cut ties with dancing completely.
For
And
how
then
long?
for about 2 years,
Wow,
I didn't
that's a
go
huge
on point.
decision. And especially like after everything you put into dance for so long, and that's something very uncommon. And I have to say, sounds a little or very mature to me for the age you
Mm,
were at to honor yourself first. You must have been having a very hard time, actually. What made
I
you
did.
make that decision? It must have broken your heart.
Um, Actually, nothing really pushed me to the limit. Nothing big pushed me to the limit. It was more gradual, and um, it's everything I've experienced in the dance world since I was 12. Um, so all of those things came together and made me question why I do this and whether it's worth putting my health and well-being at risk. And then I said, and to be honest, I wasn't in a good place mentally or physically. So I was very burned out, very unhappy, but at the same time, I was underfueling
Yeah,
because I thought that was what should be done
typical,
to
right?
absolutely. And I realized that the more I'm so sorry. I think my, did that, um,
I didn't hear
did you hear
anything.
that? Oh,
No.
okay. Um, I realized that when I was underfueling and when I was really underweight, I lost um, my jumps, which is one of my biggest strengths. I lost my ability to pick up choreography fast. I was emotionally unstable, unhappy. And it just came to the point where I said, I can't go on living like this. And it's not helping my performance or my well being in any way. And I realized that I needed some time off dancing to really gain some perspective and heal my relationship with myself and with food, with movement. And that's actually when I got certified for Pilates, yoga, mindfulness, and all that. So, in that 2, 3 year period, I never thought I would be back dancing. And I just wanted to figure out things for myself, um, especially in terms of anatomy, in terms of, nervous system. So, and then I started my second degree as a sports science student in that time to really first understand the human body and then understand performance, understand psychology, which ultimately led me to build a better relationship with myself and with movement. And after I was in a good place, I decided I could dance without harming myself. I could dance without being unhappy. And I said, that's why I went back to dancing years ago.
That was a necessary hiccups. I would say that there's probably a lot of dancers or physical performers for that matter who have an episode that sounds a little bit like that, like a moment of stopping 1 year, 2 years, or very often due to an injury or life circumstances, a pregnancy, and so on. But very rarely I heard that at such a young age. And I think you just won so much time and so much, so many years of destruction instead of coming to that realization at the end of your 30s, something like that, and then getting back to it for a little bit longer in in a more healthy way. So wow. Congrats for that, for having had also the
Thank
courage
you.
to step off. I think that's fantastic. And I understand better as well, you said all of your education when you went to a bit more the education and teaching way instead of performance. I understand better because there is a lot of neuroscience in your education, which is extremely rare because that's a field that is not so into movement yet, which should, because all the movements are
Absolutely.
called by the brain, obviously. So now I understand better. And I want to unscramble a lot in your method in Body Core, which we can talk afterwards. But before, just to keep it in you as a dancer, you went back to dancing. You're currently dancing still with the Istanbul Ballet,
Yes, now I'm dancing at Istanbul State Opera and Ballet.
which like super high elite quality. You have a great professional career at the moment, and I believe recently you ran into an injury. Would you mind talking a little bit about that? Which, I mean, are things that happen all the time for dancers, but how difficult mentally was it to come to the conclusion that surgery was needed?
Absolutely. Actually, you know, even you can do everything right. You can recover properly, eat properly, take care of yourself, but injuries can still happen because ballet is very anatomically destructive. And
Oh yeah.
in my, it's unnatural.
It's like there's no other, let's call it a sport, it's an art, but there's no other sport that for years we tried to put your knees on the other side and you destroy your feet and make them go in weird directions, and then open the hips in such a way that we keep like we all need a hip surgery in our 30s.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we call it aesthetic.
Yeah,
For the
which
sake
is
of aesthetics.
interesting.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, in my case, it wasn't actually, it happened when my partner unintentionally dropped me to the floor. So, coming into terms with, it wasn't, it's not to like, it wasn't something that happened gradually and, I feel some pain, maybe I should stop. I didn't have any time for that. Um, so he landed me off my axis onto point shoes to the left, and that caused my ankle to kind of sprain. And I didn't think it was, that severe. Like I could still do act two. But to be honest, in reality, when that happened, I stopped, I sat down on the floor, but they kept the music going. And the directors and everybody there, they said, you have to get up and finish the pas de deux. And I said,
Seriously? They did
yeah,
not run to you to see
no,
what was happening? Do you think,
unfortunately not.
is this common? Or do you think you so underplayed it? I'm sorry, I don't want to, yeah.
I think it's common, especially for if you're a newer dancer in the company. If you don't, if you're not up the hierarchy yet. So, and I said, I just want to check if my ankle is okay. And they said, what if this would happen on stage? You would get up and move on. So your show is tomorrow, and this is your final rehearsal. You are losing your own rehearsal time. So you have to get up and finish. And
What? I never heard
yeah,
something like that. This is, well,
yeah.
no, I heard that 20 years ago. It was also like
Oh,
my
it's
fear.
actually
Yeah, but because at the same time you're an asset for the company. You're an asset for these people, so they should make sure that we're not damaging you. Apart from the human side, that of course when someone is injured, you want to see if the person is okay right away, just out of being a human being.
um, I don't know if I should say this, but what's worse is when the run through was over, I had to go and apologize to every teacher, director watching for stopping, for pausing. And then I did 2 shows in a row. The next day, I had my first performance as Juliet, and I did that. Next day, I had another show. And then it turns out um, my ligament was torn, and as it was torn off, it pulled a bone with it. So there
Yeah,
was a loose bone
yeah.
fragment stuck there. And that bone fragment also sticked to another ligament on my big toe, which was causing pain. So I somehow kept going because of adrenaline and because mainly because I didn't think I had another choice and I would be, punished for um, not pushing through pain and that would have consequences. Somehow I didn't feel supported enough to prioritize my health and well-being. But now looking back, I had to come to terms with experiencing the pain and being forced off from dancing. But ultimately, and I didn't want to have surgery, to be honest, and I wanted to make sure it was absolutely necessary because when fascia is cut, the sensory feedback becomes disrupted and it loses some of its continuity. It's like interrupting a language that the body speaks in instinctively, and it alters the whole tensegrity of the system. So I went to 6 doctors, and they all said the same thing. They all said, we have to get this bone out. Otherwise, you can walk, you can do everything, but you can't go on point because it's pinching and sticking to the bone when you're on point. So yeah, I had some time. I gave myself some time to grieve, but then um, I decided that how can I make this experience? How can I turn it into something beneficial and something positive? Um, so yeah, that was my first reaction to it, but ultimately led me to find ways to help dancers who are injured and who don't have access to um, exercises or methods that they can use while injured. So without weight bearing and everything that can support their recovery, which is what I'm currently working on right now. So yeah, I think.
How is the recovery going? Because apart from an injury and understanding that we need to go to surgery, and that really rings the bell personally. I had always said I would never get a surgery. I would stop before whatever, but then at some point, sometimes it's just, well, you won't be able to lift your arm anymore. When you're like, well, I'm 32. That would be nice if I could lift my arm. So yeah, surgery is maybe a good thing. But there's the moment that we need to grieve the injury, yes, but during the recovery, it's a long and sinuous road. There are many plateaus, and I think that's more difficult than, especially when it's your body is your tool of expression, not only your tool of work and how you earn a living, but your identity. And to have to go through this recovery, which is not, a doctor often tells you, oh, in 6 weeks or in 8 weeks, they use these terms. But for us professional movers, it's more like 14 months, 24 months. And I think it can be very, that's a lot of moments that people get lost. they think they're supposed to be recovered, but then they think, well, I'm not the same. I'm never going to be the same, but it takes so much longer. So how is your recovery going, and how do you deal with that, psychologically
Um,
speaking?
I think because I've had a previous break from dancing, this time around, um, I didn't have a big problem with taking time off. I actually felt, at first, I felt anxious, I felt nervous, but now I feel I'm okay. You know, it doesn't define me. My performance doesn't define who I am or my worth. And, I'm more um, in tune with my body than before. So it was actually a good sign for me to pause and reflect on my priorities and um, my boundaries. And I think, life happens, but what defines the experience we have is our perspective and how we respond to the things that happen. So I thought, how can I turn this around? And something that seems so negative to everyone, like an injury, how can it become a place, a space for growth and even a gift? Because I really do believe that it's more about how we respond to things.
Mm.
And right now, during that recovery period, I really got into some deep research on what can help dancers or athletes or everyone help recover faster. And I, discovered some breathing methods, some more techniques to speed up healing. And I tested it on my body, which actually really helped. So for me, it was more like a research time. And um, my foot was, as the doctors say, of course, it's never, you can't say it's fully healed or, it might go down and up. But they said it's about 25 days. It's healing 25 days faster than it should, medically speaking.
Mhm.
So I think at least some of these things that I'm doing are um, beneficial, even from firsthand experience. And I like to use myself as that, evidence-based research product. So I'm approaching it more like knowing that it's not just me, and so many dancers and athletes and people go through this process all the time. And my goal is turning this into an opportunity to find more ways to help people who are experiencing the same thing.
Amazing. That's you seem in a very good place as well,
Thank you.
which helps the recovery. Recovery is not just waiting that it heals and gets back together. And obviously, the fact that you're very healthy and have a good lifestyle really makes a difference rather than someone, yeah, waiting for it to heal by itself, obviously. I'd love you
Absolutely.
to talk about more of the breathing techniques for recovery as well.
Um, I really discovered that one of the most effective breathing methods for recovery is one, box breathing, which is very simple, very effective, but it's, as you said, you need to be in a good place mentally and physically, but also your nervous system has to be in a place that can heal, restore, and repair. So the box breathing really helps with that. And also, it might sound strange to the dancers, I guess, but humming is really helpful for increasing nitric oxide, which then helps tissue repair and, um, all the collagen sensitization.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, humming is another one that's really, really helpful.
Oh, interesting. I take a note.
Yeah.
I want to research that further.
Yeah, I was trying to find ways to reduce inflammation. And after doing these, especially humming, after doing that, I realized that the swelling started to go away much faster and my nervous system was much calmer. And then I did some research, and it's science evidence backed method to reduce inflammation in the body. And also there are drainage, lymphatic cleansing breathing methods, which include a lot of breath holding, um, which then also I think really helps with the um, removal and reducing of the waste and the toxins. So I think recovery is not a passive period. It should be. It's actually a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. And daily recovery as well, because obviously we do micro damage to our bodies on a daily basis, even just by like everyone, but especially if you're physically active. So recovery, it's so much work.
Absolutely. And I actually realized that, when I did like a Pilates class, my body needed more time to recover than what I would normally give. So I don't think it makes sense for dancers to push through the same amount every single day. And then I knew that athletes train in curves. They have these like peak performance um, structures in their schedule. And I realized that my body needs more recovery time than ballet allows it to have. So I'm hoping that in the future, ballet dancers' schedules can shift into more a science-based, evidence-based structure like athletes.
Do you think that the ballet dancers will let it shift? That's something I was wondering for myself, because
Mm.
obviously you have, if you compare, I'm from Canada, so the national sports is hockey. So that's a bit the football of a lot of European countries. And when I was a child, there was a like a program on TV or documentary where they were comparing the most paid, the number one hockey player from the NHL and the prima ballerina of the Grand Ballet Canadien. The salaries, obviously, ballet dancers are like the most underpaid athletes. I have to call them athletes again. Salaries, the level of training, the level of recuperation. You had the hockey players after a match, they were going to drink beer together and go to bed at 2 or 3 in the morning, and then take like, how, if you do that as a ballet dancer, you don't survive to tomorrow. It's not possible. And then they play golf in the summer, like for 4 months or something. All of that is so unequal. And as you said, in so many other sports, and there's a reason for that, because you recover on the long term, you need more time. But I will say and I'm not a ballet dancer, but I can include me in that group. We are so trained to thinking that if we miss one day, we're going to lose the boat. It's like our quality will not be up to the standards. We'll lose number one. Everyone will. So if it was in the scheduling that there were less dancing, less class in the morning shows, do you think that dancers would actually train at night at home?
I really, I really hope not, but it's the culture that needs a little bit of shifting and a little bit of perspective, because dancers keep saying and keep quoting these amazing icons like Bershnikov, who said, if you miss class one day, you will know. If you miss two classes, your teacher will know. If you miss three classes in a row, the entire audience will know. And this is kind of like the mantra, sorry, the mantra of all dancers. And I think it fuels the anxiety of recovery. But that's why I think education is really important for dancers and athletes, because they need to understand that human body doesn't just work that way. You know, you can take 2 days off and you're not going to die. You will actually come back stronger and better. And even in this day and age, it's kind of if you say this to a scientist, if you say this to a sports nutritionist or someone, who knows about these situations, if you say that to them, it's not, they will be like, obviously,
Yeah.
it's basic. And
What a discovery you made here, my dear. Yeah.
but it's so hard to convince dancers because they have been programmed this way since their childhood. They've been told these things over and over again, that you can't take time off, you can't live a normal life, and you need to sacrifice yourself every single day, which, we've seen how that played out in the last 20 years. For example, everyone I know who really sacrifices themselves and, doesn't take care of their bodies, they're all injured. They're all unhappy. They're like 99% really struggles and experiences depression when they quit. So I think, just looking at the data, we can see something is not right. And um, that's why I think it is harder to convince dancers, but it's time.
Absolutely. And then I think that the more it's a bit like national teams in different sports, they completely change their technique and there's more recovery because they saw that the results speak for themselves. But it just made me think of a little anecdote for as long as I can remember, until a certain point, I was in pain. I mean, being in pain was part of the deal. If you train 8 hours per day and you have tendinitis everywhere, it's just part, and it's even like, it's fine, I can go with that. And I had an accident and a surgery and a full shoulder reconstruction. And after that, that was the first time I experienced life without pain. Because of course I was in recovery and that was a very heavy recovery. So I mean, the shoulder pain was fine, but the rest of the body, so much so that I thought, and it's very, now it's a bit embarrassing to admit, but I thought, oh, people live like that. Like, how amazing! It is possible. And since then, obviously, there's a lot of things that has changed in my life, and I think my quality and my physical quality as well has not changed. I'm in top shape, and I'm in my 40s, and I have a lot of flexibility, strength, and all of that has not, it's not less than it was, but I have no pain. I have no tendinitis. It's
Amazing.
isn't it bizarre that like before I lived like that, thinking that, yeah, sure, you can go ahead like that. And I don't know about you, and that's a bit of a big indicator for me to tell me if I missed recovery, because anytime that I had, I don't know, that there was nothing tomorrow, no wake up call, no nothing, I could sleep for 15 hours. There was nothing to like I would never wake up because I was exhausted every day of my life. Like, hello, what a sign.
Yeah. I mean, that's so true. And, it's not just muscular fatigue, it's also neurological fatigue, like which affects coordination, balance, I mean, reaction time, or emotional and systemic fatigue caused from chronic stress, pressure, lack of mental and physical recovery. And all of these things really affect how dancers, live their lives. And usually, almost every dancer I meet, they're all hyper vigilant. So their nervous system never really calms down, and at least not intentionally or regularly. So I think that really affects how the body recovers and how the tissues repair. And what you said, I can absolutely so relate to the personal story you just shared. Also because I'm very hypermobile. That's one of the reasons I wanted to research anatomy and I wanted to become, more educated in these subjects. And I don't mean hypermobile in a good way.
Mhm.
My knees have like bow shapes. So genuvarum, which is the opposite of what dancers want. So my knees are naturally genetically internally rotated and swaying back. Um, when I was young, I was actually told it's so severe that you will have problems walking. You will have pain when you walk. And then because I was always working twice as hard, and ballet kind of saved my life in that sense because I got very muscular.
Yeah.
I have a muscular body type, and that strength saved my life. But at the same time, it causes me to work twice as hard, even in ballet class. And I just in the recent years, I was looking around, sweating, like dripping in sweat, just in plie because I'm trying to externally rotate my legs. And I realized that no one else is in that much pain and discomfort. And I always told myself, ballet, no pain, no gain. It is uncomfortable. It is supposed to be painful. But I realized that it's not supposed to be that uncomfortable, that painful, that constant discomfort of bringing the body into a shape that my anatomy is clearly not designed to. And I guess I can be an example of, you know, doing something regardless of your body's limitations. But at the same time, I started to feel that I also need to honor my own anatomy and my own body because I'm realizing now that that much discomfort and pain is not something natural, even for dancers.
Yeah, we say, oh no, I got used to it, but there is a system that is working harder in the meantime in the background. I'm very happy that you brought the types of fatigue because that's something I had personally studies a long time ago. I have a background also in psychology and now neuroscience, and you you're one of the only one who thought about that, and I really like the way that how you brought it because you're very good vulgarizer at the same time. Can you explain what are the type of fatigues and if any, which one the dancer would be more prone to?
I think you would be more knowledgeable about this subject, obviously, but I think there are three types of fatigue in terms of generally speaking. Um, Obviously, muscular, neurological, and um, mental, emotional, or systemic fatigue. So muscles are obviously um, muscle fatigue comes from local tissue overload, sore, heavy muscles that need physical recovery time, circulation, and I usually approach when I tune into my body and when I really feel like my body is sore, I approach that with gentle movements and proper nutrition and supplements like magnesium, omega-3, or collagen, or it depends on the day, obviously, but supplements really help make a big difference in how my muscles recover. And the second fatigue type, I believe, is the neurological fatigue, which, as I said, affects even the memory, the brain fog, coordination, balance, and reaction time, which are all so important for dancers, especially during partnering. If you have less reaction time, you have to be really in the moment, really feel where your partner is, where to put your leg. And the neurological fatigue usually happens from nervous system being overstimulated, and um, I think the best recovery here would be, nervous system downregulation, breath work, um, and to be honest, sleep.
Oh,
I,
yes.
I think that's the big magic word.
Yeah, but it's a hard one because that's something that if you don't give yourself the right tools, it does not want to happen.
Absolutely, and not just sleep, obviously. Quality sleep is something many of us rarely get, and I really find, magnesium to be actually helpful with that.
Which
Um,
magnesium do you take? Which type do you take?
um, I think it's supposed to be the it's a mix, I think. It's
Bisglycinate is very good
yes, yes,
for sleeping,
glycinate.
and it's also, and bisglycinate is it's just a different way that the molecule is prepared, but it's even better than glycinate, although the same process in your brain. But it's also very good for the muscles, so that's really the one that I usually would tell
Mm.
people to take. And the thing with magnesium also, it's like now we started to talk about magnesium a lot and sleeping, but magnesium, there's magnesium and there's magnesium. You can end up with magnesium oxide, and apart from the side
Absolutely.
effect that you don't want to have, it will not
Yeah.
really help you for that. But okay, that's good. That
So
um,
for that reason, I actually get blood tests done every like 4 months because
fantastic.
I'm taking supplements and I don't know if my body actually needs that much. So I think it's important for, especially athletes, dancers, or anyone who takes, supplements, or not just supplements, any medication, or even if they don't, because
Yeah.
sometimes you just, I didn't take anything for years, and then I got my blood test done and I realized my vitamin D is so low that I don't even know how I function. So I think these should be done regularly for
And to
safety.
be educated about what it means. And I think it sounds very difficult. It's not that difficult actually, because I think doctors wanted you to think it was difficult so they can give you like, oh no, you're within range, but their range sometimes is so, or what they learned at school. It's not that they want to not do things well. I really admire the profession, but especially if you're a professional mover and you ask so much from your body, you have to understand what your blood panel means and how we can play with it. And I think that's one of my favorite games to try to better things on my own and then to see the improvement on the next blood panel. And it make a huge difference on so many processes, obviously. And I think a lot of dancers, professional movers, but dancers have super high cortisol,
Oh, absolutely.
and that makes other processes like your metabolism go way slower just to protect yourself. So you're actually working against yourself because you think, oh my god, I need to be better. Or there's a lot of dancers who want to lose weight. There's a lot of people in general who want to lose weight, and they think, oh, I have to do more, I have to train more. But then the cortisol goes up and the body goes like, oh, wait a moment, let me go down with the metabolism because there's like problem here. So just by self-regulating, sleeping more, you would actually, I don't like to say that, but lose weight, but that would be like, you would get to your point, but in the meantime, you would be much more healthy. I want to jump to the Body Core Method because I think we really need to discover more about it. And just parenthesis, I do your classes, which I'm not so
Oh.
fond of follow along classes. I've been teaching myself for more than 30 years, but there are exceptions. You're one of those. The information, the learning I get from them, and the fact that they're difficult, and it's hard to find something that is difficult and smart, like, and not injuring. So I want to thank you for that, for making
Oh,
such
thank you
amazing
so
content.
much. That means the world to me coming from you.
Thank you. Tell us, what is Body Core? Fascia training, we'll need to talk about that a lot because fascia is not really known still. Joint decompression, and also I want you to unscramble neural mobility for us.
Absolutely. Bodycore is essentially a holistic movement platform where kind of science meets mindful movement. And what I do is combine fascia training and joint decompression, neural mobility, and neuromuscular reprogramming, as I say, with different methods like Pilates, mobility work, bar fitness, yoga, breath work, and even mindfulness. And in my classes, I generally use spiral, multidimensional movements, and conscious breathing patterns to release tension while moving, to create space in the joints, to rehydrate the fascia, and to kind of retrain and reteach the body how the mind and body communicate. And I also really try to make sure I include a variety of classes and methods because the body doesn't always need the same thing every day. Sometimes it needs to slow down, and other times it needs more power, more plyometric work. And I always try to encourage people to listen to their bodies and what they need today. Not every day needs to be 100% of effort. Sometimes um, you need more moving with more ease. And um, so I try to bring that, this science and the artistry part together. And I saw a huge gap in the way dancers are trained and in traditional fitness and everyday movers. Um, and I really wanted to help people train in a way that can help them with their longevity because um, strength training is great, flexibility work is great, and Pilates is great. But I think most methods usually focus on one thing, either strength or flexibility or that. But I really do believe that true transformation happens when you integrate them all. And Pilates builds the strength, yoga brings awareness and flexibility, bar refines alignment, and fascia work restores flow and glide. And when combined, they create balance, connection, and longevity ultimately. So I think what Bodycore does is it bridges science and artistry and training not just the muscles but the nervous system, and um, so that people can move more intelligently, fluidly, and in harmony with their bodies without destroying the body, without
Yeah.
putting more pressure.
I think one important part as well that you mentioned is training in different part. Like if the body was a Lego, then we take some pieces and then, well, I'm going to work on this one today, I'm going to work on this one, but nothing is connected. And maybe then you can tell me if I'm wrong, but your knowledge of fascia brings a little bit a complement to that, because that's the part we don't know or is not talked about. And even physical therapists, it's very rare that they're trained in the understanding of the fascia. I think it's maybe more common these days, but very rarely. So I'd like you to go a bit deeper in the fascia, the spiral training, to maybe that's an easier way to explain the fascia,
Mm-hmm.
and to try to, because you're so good at vulgarizing, explain people how they can start to understand their fascia, that maybe that there resides the problem sometimes.
Um, Fascia and the nervous system are basically the body's communication network. They decide how efficiently, how effectively we move, recover, and adapt to stress. And without addressing fascia, without addressing fascial health and nervous system, the body can't fully integrate strength, flexibility, and control. Also, because fascia transfers force faster than muscles. And the interesting thing is the body keeps score. So every experience, every emotion, every repetitive pattern leaves its imprint in the tissues. And sometimes the tension we hold isn't just physical, but it's emotional or protective, like after an injury. And all that is stored in the fascia and reflected in how we move. And when we train fascia, we restore elasticity, glide, and we can unlock more range of motion. And when we also regulate the nervous system, we release that stored trauma that kind of lives within the tissues, and that ultimately lets the body feel more connected, more in tune, and helps us perform at our best. And when I talk about rehydrating fascia, I mean restoring the fluid movement and glide between the layers of connective tissue. So the fascia doesn't just wrap around the muscles or the organs or the nerves. It's more like a living dynamic network that depends on pressure, movement, and elasticity to stay healthy and to function. Kind of like a sponge where you have to squeeze and release to make the sponge function at its best. So in practice, that means using spirals, glides, multi-directional sequences that gently compresses and releases different areas of the body. And those subtle changes in pressure help fresh fluid and nutrients circulate better in the tissues. So um, and that's how we hydrate fascia. And by hydrating fascia, we also increase the fascias, the network's capacity to transfer force more efficiently. So energy moves seamlessly from one area to the other. And I find a useful way to understand that is slings, the sling system. So we can um, visually see the sling connections in the body, which kind of helps us understand how the force is transferred from, for example, the right inner thigh to the left oblique, and then how it's all connected through the lateral lines, the oblique slings. And I try to now use those images on social media when I'm showing some of the exercises, and I try to highlight them to help people understand what I mean by, force transfer and all that. So I think when we work on that system, then energy moves um, more fluidly, which means less effort and more control. So we don't need brute strength to create physical shapes. We can use that force transfer um, in a way that can help us move more seamlessly.
Yeah, I see fluidity. I hear that's the word that comes out to me, fluidity. I have a question regarding because those who address the fascia in the past that I have experience were often yoga teacher and who were talking about the fascia, and often there was a lot of swinging, so to be like at full extension and then swing into the and I don't want to do that, like I always no thanks, and you don't do that. Why? And yeah, why is it do you also see it as detrimental, or is everyone has that wrong? Sorry.
I think there are certain ways to address fascia in with different methods. I do think that bouncing and, bouncing in spirals is beneficial most of the time, but it doesn't need to be the only way to address fascia and to hydrate fascia. It is true that static stretching is not so great for the fascia, especially if you have hypermobility. For example, for someone like me who has hypermobility, my fascia is kind of already, what's the word? Compromised. So it's not already moving in an efficient way. So doing static stretches like yin yoga is actually very harmful for my body. I actually am also a yin yoga teacher, so I'm kind of saying
Interesting.
something bad about
Yeah.
my own. But it's just not for my body, and it can be great for somebody else who doesn't have hypermobility. But for someone with hypermobility or someone with big ranges of motion, it's better to address it with gentle glides and spirals. And bouncing can be, again, effective for some bodies, some body types, and
Okay.
it might not be great for everyone. that's why becoming more in tune with the body is really important to understand what feels good for my body, what feels, you know, difficult, but comfortable and doable. And I also want to say that, as I was researching all of this, I don't know if you've heard of her, Dr. Edith Heas. She's a fascia expert. Um,
No, I don't.
she's, I recently had a chance to meet with her, and she trained Olympic athletes and principal dancers all around the world for over 20 years. So she's been in the field for such a long time, and she's actually also a physiotherapist, an osteopath, and she designed her own fascia training system, which I found really interesting. And she uses these like kettlebells with water inside, so
Mhm.
it's not a. And then she created these exercise system that are really, really beneficial and so diverse and different. And for the purpose of, as I said, I'm in the process of creating this recovery course for dancers and everyone. She is also going to be featured in that. So it won't just be my classes, it would be also her fascia classes integrated in, which I'm really excited about. And I think will make a huge difference in how people, not just recover, but how they can optimize performance as well.
That's I'm looking forward to seeing that and learning even more. I'm um, I'm getting slightly nervous because I wanted to keep this conversation under 1 hour, and I just tackled a few of the subjects I wanted to talk about. There's so many fascinating subjects that I would like to visit with you, and we'll probably need another interview for that. I feel like I just got started, um,
I'm
and I
happy to
don't.
come back whenever.
Thank you. I'll try to. I want to visit like a few of the subjects maybe that we can go less deep, which might be a bit boring, not go so deep. So forget what I said. Um, Number one, what would you say are the top causes of anxiety in dancer, and yeah, how to address them?
Well, there are so many. I would say one of the biggest ones is the, pressure on body image, job insecurity, financial insecurity, um, and recently, more in the recent years, social media comparison is, I think, big for dancers at the moment. And, the constant need to look perfect, both on stage and online, creates chronic stress on the body, on the nervous system. And also, obviously, there's the uncertainty of the career itself. You can get injured anytime. The emotional strain of tying your worth to your job, to your performance is extremely toxic. And um, so I think the biggest challenge is the body image, financial insecurity, and the pressure to look perfect.
And to talk about social media, I often wonder how athletes also, like even professional athletes, how they have time, because it's a full-time job to be at that level, like as a ballerina, professional athlete. How do you have time to then? It's a full-time job to take care of your social media. I don't understand how they do it, first of all, and that's something I was wondering about you as well. I assume you don't dance at the very moment because you're recovering from an injury, but when you're dancing in a company and then you're teaching, you're so present on social media. How does that work? How do you balance, not balance, separate the amount of hour that there is in a day within all of these
Yeah.
spheres?
I mean, I've been overwhelmed by this so many times, and I try to find a balance. It's not great, even at the moment, to be 100% honest. But I try to approach it like cycles. Like right now, the if I have an important show coming up, if I need to be 100% invested in that, then I approach that period as, you know, the dancer
Yeah,
Ayça
yeah.
period. And I kind of do this thing of storing classes. So I have a few classes stored in the pocket for when I need to really rehearse so many hours a day and learn choreography. And and then when I have a more easy schedule dancing, then I try to make that a time of creation and teaching cycle. So even during the day, some obviously not every day is perfect because life is already hard. But even like during the day, I try to approach it like this time of the day is for this, and in the afternoon I will do that. So I try to really separate them all, and um, yeah, I think that really helps. And taking small breaks during the day really helps as well.
Discipline goes a long way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, Thank you for sharing all of that, really. I'd like to know, as a last question from me, what's next for you and for Body Core? And you can go like wild dreams, best case scenario.
What's next for me in Body Core? Both creatively and educationally, I would say expansion. I want to keep building Bodycore into a global platform that bridges science and movement and mindfulness for dancers and athletes. And I hope that my approach can bring more awareness into dancers' daily lives and how they approach their own bodies. I hope my approach to my classes and body core can inspire even just one person to um, build a better relationship with their bodies. I would say I'm really happy with that. And um, in the future, I would love to develop new programs that focus on recovery, performance, and nervous system training. And I would love to bring in more experts like Dr. Edith to collaborate. We are launching our app soon, so that's another thing I'm looking forward to. And generally, my vision is to make bodycore not just a training method, but a community, a movement philosophy, really, that supports longevity, artistry, and holistic well being.
I feel it's already the case. So I think you already
Thank you
reached
so
that goal.
much.
Where people can find you in the multitude of social media and website they're not, where's the place to go?
They can find me on Instagram at AYCA ANILL. My name is difficult to pronounce, so it's Ayça Anil, Ayça Anil, really, and at Bodycore on Instagram. Also, www.com, bodycore, no, bodycore.com is the website, is the correct website. Um, and they can find me also on YouTube. I share some of the clips from Core Conversation, which is Body Core's podcast. But yeah, mainly I'm most active on Instagram at AYCAANILL.
Aisha, thank you for your time today and your generosity and really everything that you're sharing with the world. I'm looking forward to seeing the next 20 years for Body Core and for yourself.
Oh, thank you so much, Erica. It was such a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for inviting me. I loved speaking to you. Thank you so much.